Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Booklights today. You are in for such a treat. Get out the fog and the spooky houses because today we're going to be chatting with gothic thriller author Paulette Kennedy. She is the best-selling author of The Witch of Tin Mountain and Parting the Veil, which received the prestigious H&S Review Editor's Choice Award. She has had a lifelong obsession with the gothic. As a young girl, she spent summers among the gravestones in her neighborhood cemetery, imagining all sorts of romantic stories for the people buried there. After her mother introduced her to Brontës as a teenager, Paulette's affinity for fog-covered landscapes and haunted heroines only grew, inspiring her to become a writer. She's originally from the Missouri Ozarks, but she now lives with her family and a menagerie of rescue pets in sunny Southern California, where sometimes, on the very best days, the mountains are wreathed in fog. You can connect with her on Instagram and at her website, which if you look in the show notes, there is a link right there for you to get connected with Paulette, and definitely check out her website, and then you can sign up for her newsletter. I Can Talk, guys. And definitely check that out. So Paulette, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm excited.
I'm so glad you could be here. I'm excited too, because I am a sucker for gothics. I love the spooky and all that kind of thing. And I was so excited when your publicist was telling me about your new book, The Artist of Blackberry Grange. Can you tell us about the book and why everybody should go grab a copy? I know it just came out.
Yeah, it just came out on May 1st. So The Artist of Blackberry Grange follows Sadie, who is a young woman, a former flapper. So she was kind of a party girl. This is set in the 1920s, 1925 specifically, this novel. And she's down on her luck because her mother has just died unexpectedly. And her fiance, who happens to be married, that is in the very first chapter, so not giving too much away. Yes. Breaks her heart. And she really is in dire straits. So she finds out that her great aunt, who was an acclaimed artist during the Gilded Age, is suffering from dementia and needs a live-in caregiver, a companion, as they were called back in those days. And so she goes from Kansas City to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, to become her great aunt Marguerite's caregiver. Well, when she gets there, she discovers a series of mysterious portraits that her aunt painted. And these portraits are haunted, and they function as time slip or time travel portals to the past.
Oh, yeah. I love it. So I wanted to ask you about what inspired you to write this? I was looking at all your other books and they all seem to be different time periods. What inspired this one? What made you go, I need to write a haunted painting story?
Well, the idea came to me actually about 3 years ago, where I thought, I really want to write a portal book, but I need to have the energy and wherewithal to write one because they're difficult. Mostly because of all of the time slips, because you have to have continuity and they have to fit in with the main narrative. So I knew I needed time. And also what inspired the main theme of the novel and how Sadie goes to become a caregiver is I have experience with that, having cared for my mother and my father when they were elderly. My mom passed away from cancer in late 2022, and my dad had Alzheimer's. And so I had experience being both of their caregivers at different points in time. And I felt like I wanted to tell a story from that perspective because I don't see it very often in novels. And I do feel like it's one of those books that there's a lot of elements to it. It's very complex, hopefully not too complex for the reader. It was very complex for me to write. But all of my books do have different plots. And even though they're all Gothic and they have some of the same themes and there is a through line with some of the subject matter that I talk about in my books, I like giving my readers something a little bit different every time because I have a lot of interest within the Gothic genre. I'm from the Ozarks. So there's a lot of Southern Gothic flair to my
Right.
work. But there's also like elements of fantasy and a lot of different speculative elements because I write what I like to read.
Right, right. Well, I'm interested that when I saw that one of the narrators has dementia, how much fun did you have with the unreliable narrator part of, when she's lucid and maybe when she's not so much? How did you handle that? Was that fun or was it challenging?
It was a little bit of both. I love an unreliable narrator. That's one of my favorite tropes in Gothic fiction. And here with Marguerite, we have some reason behind that without giving too much away. That's part of the whole crux of what Sadie is trying to discover throughout the novel is what is the truth? What is delusion? What part of Marguerite's memories are trustworthy and which parts aren't? And I think that the mind does pretty phenomenal things to protect itself from trauma. And that's something I explore in this too, because I definitely have experienced trauma in my life and it does rewire your brain. And even though Marguerite's is mostly because of dementia, there's also that trauma in her background that informs her part of the story. And Sadie uncovering that is the main point.
And how did you weave in the art with that? Because I feel like art can sometimes give you a more honest portrayal of trauma than words, because sometimes we don't have words to convey, something like that. So were you able to communicate some of that through her artwork or through her painting or?
I think so. And that's a great question because it's something that, I was just thinking as you were talking about that. It's interesting to me that like when she's a young woman, she's painting portraits. And she says that the reason that she moved to landscapes is because that's what made money. So that was how she was able to make a living as an artist. I almost said author.
little Freudian slip.
little Freudian slip there. I mean, we do write what sells.
Right.
But I'm lucky to write what I love
like
and
to
what
eat,
I sell. Yes, we like to eat. It's nice to be able to pay the bills.
Right.
But as an artist, it is kind of interesting that she chooses to move to landscapes. And I think one of the reasons is she's not ready to confront like some of the secrets that these portraits reveal about her. And like the novel that helped inspire this book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, that element is in that classic work of fiction too, because the portrait of Dorian reveals everything about his character. Even though on the outside he is this beautiful, like charismatic young man, like inside he's rotting. And I think that to a lesser degree, the same can kind of be said about Marguerite. But like, I love the cover, and the cover of this book is so great. Kimberly Glider is an amazing cover artist. And I love that this portrait of Marguerite that is on the cover of the book, the varnish is cracked on the painting.
I saw that.
And I feel like that's highly, highly symbolic of what is happening in the novel.
Right. And in Dorian Gray, there's almost like an invisible ticking clock. Do you have that in yours too? Like the more she slips away to dementia, do we feel that? Did you feel that when you were writing it?
Yeah, I did. I feel like, the rising action in my novels, and Gothic fiction in general, you have a slow building sense of dread, and then the rising action really ramps up after the midpoint, and that's kind of how Gothic fiction functions. And that ticking clock is always there, and they are definitely on a race against time. Sadie is on a race against time to uncover the truth, because in order for her to be happy and all of her descendants to be happy, she has to solve these problems that trickled down through the generations.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm intrigued. I'm sure everyone who's listening is intrigued. Did you have, I don't know if you're a plotter or a pantser, but did you have a big surprise when you were writing this book, like where a character made a hard right and you were like, wait a second, what just happened? Was there a big surprise for you?
There wasn't necessarily a surprise. I did plot this one mostly out of necessity because it's so complex. I do leave room for discovery writing even when I plot. So my outlines are kind of loose for that reason. It wasn't so much of a surprise. My editor and I discussed one of the antagonist's motivations, and there are quite a few antagonists in this book. When you read it, you'll see that. But the main antagonist, we had to discover what drove him, like what was making him take these actions in the contemporary for the time timeline versus the historical timeline. And so I really did a lot of work trying to uncover what happened to set all of this in motion, like the inciting incident back in the past that set everything going on this course. And so that was fun and also challenging and kind of surprising. And there's a scene toward the end of the book where Sadie finally confronts Marguerite with this perilous secret. And that was a difficult scene to write, but also very exciting to write. So I hope that readers are excited to read it. So.
Yeah, I know as an author, when there's those big payoff moments, we've written the whole book. So you've been there for, days, weeks, months. And we always get there and we're like, oh, I hope the payoff is good enough. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Because it can be really disappointing if it's not. And I have, sometimes in my earlier fiction, I feel like, the rising action happens the way it does in Gothic for a purpose, but also I'm very conscious of not rushing my endings or my climaxes now and really taking the time they need to flesh them out. It does seem like a lot of authors, when we're on deadline, we're kind of coming up right against that date. And so it makes us like write faster toward the end. But I really am trying to slow down when I get to the end so that I can really pull that out and give a satisfying experience to my reader.
Right. Well, did you have a favorite scene in the book? I mean, with no spoilers, but was there a scene where you went, oh, this is why I wrote this book?
There are several in the novel. There's a scene that takes place on a bluff. Again, I can't give too much away because it's a very climactic scene that was very fun to write. And this is in the past timeline. But one of my favorite scenes to write early on in the novel was when Sadie first comes to Blackberry Grange, and she has some ulterior motives. She's a little bit opportunistic. She sees this opportunity to go live with her wealthy aunt and be basically taken care of the rest of her life, financially at least. And the gardener, who has been Marguerite's loyal employee for his entire life, is very protective of Marguerite, and he susses her out immediately, and he knows why she's there. And they have this confrontation in this beautiful grotto that borders the house. And I loved writing that scene because it developed a lot of tension between them.
Right.
It was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, I wanted to ask you, since from what I could tell from your books, they're all Gothics. What is it that attracts you to writing Gothics? What's your favorite part?
I think the thing that I love the most about Gothic is how it blends so many of the genres that I love to read. You've got mystery, you've got romance, you've got the supernatural, you've got some thriller pacing that happens. And all of those are genres that I love to read. And then historical fiction has always been a great love of mine. So it is just a way for me to encapsulate all the genres that I love in one genre. And a lot of people, more contemporary readers, more modern readers, the first time they encounter a Gothic novel, they're like, what genre is this? Like, what is this? It's like a mystery and it's got suspense and there's ghosts and there's a love scene. What is happening here? And my friend Chris Waldhair, she's a great Gothic author herself. She sums it up perfectly when she says that Gothic is the marriage between dread and desire. And it's so true. That really just sums it up.
Right. Yeah. You think of like Wuthering Heights, where you're like, is he going to kill her or love her?
Right. Yeah, we can go pretty dark with Gothic too, which I love. And I love horror fiction too, but I like the atmosphere in Gothic fiction, which is why I tend to gravitate more toward that than full on horror.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if Blackberry Grange is actually like a character, because you think of things like that movie Crimson Peak, where the house is really a character in there. Was her place where she lives, her art studio, whatever, was that actually kind of a character in the book?
Yes, houses are characters in my books, in a lot of my books. And with this one, especially Blackberry Grange being this rambling Queen Anne style mansion, which was based on a couple different houses, but the main one is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. By the architect C.W. Terry, and it's a beautiful Queen Anne mansion. Um, and there are so many rooms in those styles of houses if you've ever been in one. A lot of them are hidden. You think of the Winchester Mansion too,
Right.
That just goes on and on and on. And I think they work as a powerful metaphor for the psyche. And with Marguerite having all of these family secrets and all of these delusions, I think the house helps a little bit with having that disorienting feeling that Sadie experiences sometimes when she's in the house. And I just love old houses. I love them. Like, I'm so passionate about like just Victorian homes and how unique they were. And even like the catalog homes that like Sears put out had so much character, back then. And I feel like we've lost that with, yes, we have some modern creature comforts, but there's just so much character in an old house. And that's one of the things I love about incorporating them.
Right. I love that. So what is next for you? What are you working on next?
My next novel, which will be out in early 2026, is called The Two Deaths of Lillian Carmichael. And I am leaving the Ozarks for this book. My last three books have been set in the Ozarks, which is where I'm from.
So where are you going this time?
Charleston, South Carolina, the Low Country. Nice. Yes. And it is about a young woman who is accused of murdering her sister, convicted of murdering her sister, and sentenced to death. And she ends up escaping her own execution and being buried alive.
Oh, no.
Yes. So, and this all happens early in the novel. So again, not giving too much away.
Right.
And once she escapes her family mausoleum, because she comes from a wealthy family, she's a debutante, a Charleston debutante, Southern belle. And once she escapes her tomb, then all these murders start happening, and they're vampiric murders where these corpses are showing up drained of blood. And she gets the blame because they opened.
She was the last. Oh, and she's gone.
And she's gone. She's not there when they open the mausoleum. And so she gets the blame for the murders because she's the most likely suspect. And it's all about her trying to create a new life and a new identity in the face of all of these horrible circumstances, and also trying to get to the bottom of these murders so she can not necessarily clear her name, because she can never go back. She'll be hanged for murder again if she does. But it's really a deep character study in what guilt and innocence looks like. And it's been really fun to write. I'm in the second round of developmental edits with that one right now.
Oh, nice. It sounds fantastic. Do you like to go to your settings? Like, did you go visit Charleston? And
I did. Yes. Yeah. I went to Charleston this winter and spent a week there, and really did a lot of like on the ground research. And I went to the Low Country and had a marsh tour, which was amazing. It was frigidly cold there in January.
I bet.
Yeah, it's usually not that cold. My friend that lives there is like, it's usually not this cold, but I got lucky and got the coldest week of the year.
Oh, dang.
But it did help give me some insight into what my character might have experienced, in the marshes. And I learned a lot about the ecology of the area and all of the things I needed to really bring the world building to where it needed to be.
I love that. Yeah, I like to go where I set books too. And I write series. So I have to go there and figure out at least 4 books worth of where might they go? Where might they work? I mean, mine aren't historical, but trying to figure out, and there's so much that you can't find on Google. You go there and then you're like, oh my gosh, the air feels like this, or, oh, it smells like this when you go part of town, stuff you can't find on Google. So yeah, I totally get. And did it inspire new things for the book that you hadn't thought of when you went there?
Yeah, for sure. And you're totally right. Like those sensory details, being there really helps you write them.
Right.
I didn't have the opportunity with my debut because I wrote it during the COVID-19 pandemic and I couldn't go to England. I couldn't travel.
Right.
And I feel like if I would have been able to, I would have brought a whole new level of richness to the atmosphere in that book. So now I travel, and most of my books, again, are set in the Ozarks, which is where I'm from. So I know that environment really well. But yeah, when I was there, just seeing the streets that my character would have walked on and the history behind the buildings. And I was able to find a house that would have inspired her childhood home. And just different things like that add more depth to the characterization and the story. There's just really nothing that can replace that.
I totally agree. And sometimes new scenes that you wouldn't have even known to plan for happen when you go there, and you're like, oh my gosh, of course they would go here, and and that kind of thing. So anyway, I love that you got to go there. Our listeners are primarily readers, and they're always interested in what your writing journey was. And it sounds like you were inspired from a young age, but how did you get from I want to be a writer to you were published? How did that look for you?
Well, I had lots of fits and starts, as I tell people. I had been writing ever since I was a child, but I hadn't finished a full-length manuscript that I was able to query until I was in my early 40s.
Wow.
Yeah, I would start lots of things and then not finish them.
Right. We all have that.
Yes, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And so I would get bogged down in the weeds trying to just edit and make something perfect on the first pass. And that's just really hard to do. I would say impossible. So when I finally finished the manuscript that became Parting the Veil, it was it would have been in 2019, I believe, early 2020. I started querying, and I had a lot of initial interest, but no takers. So I pulled it back for one more revision. And then I put all my cards on the table with Pit Mad, which was really big on Twitter. And my pitch went viral, and I had lots of agent interest. Yeah. And so I got lucky. I mean, I did query a lot, and I did do the work, but I feel like being someone who had started several novels and never finished them, and then my first manuscript was one that got picked up, I feel like luck was a big factor for me. And I will not ever dispute that. Yeah. But now, having written, I just finished my 6th book. I literally just turned it in yesterday. I know I can do it now. And so being published and having that experience of going from always being a writer, but not reaching my goal until later in life, it gave me a whole new appreciation for the drive and determination it takes to A, even finish a manuscript, and B, then to carry it through all the way to publication.
Right. Yeah. Because when we dream about being a writer, we don't know that there's going to be all these rounds of edits. And we don't know that by the time that book comes out, if you have to read it one more time, you'll throw up,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll get edit notes, and I'm like, if I have to go to the beginning of this book one more time, but
I know
all part of the dream.
And I know that every author feels differently about their books. But once a book is published, for me, it's kind of dead to me.
Right.
I mean, I love all my work and I'm proud of it, but it's like, I'm done. That's gone. That's in the past. That belongs to the readers. Now let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
So, Yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to do self promo for that. In that sense, I need to, and I know it's important, but it I'm always thinking about the next thing.
Right. Well, and you're probably already writing the next thing by the time the other
Hmm.
thing comes out. I can recall a book release where I was doing an online event and somebody on there said, "Oh my gosh, it meant so much to me when they danced on the beach with this song." And I was sitting there going, "They
I
what?
can't even remember
They
that.
danced on
Yeah,
the beach?" And I had to like go look it up in the book and go, "Oh yeah." Oh my gosh.
it was
But you get
years
so
ago.
right. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
get so entrenched in what you're writing
Yeah.
now that your brain has already downloaded and dumped the I was like, oh
Hmm.
my goch, they dance on the beach. What's wrong with me? So
I know.
but I'm glad that it's not just me.
No, it's not. I talked to a lot of my friends that have been doing this for a while. It's like, oh gosh, I can't even remember writing half of what I wrote, and then you read it
Right.
again, and you're like, who wrote this?
Right. Well, and sometimes too, when we're pushing, like you mentioned earlier about pushing toward that deadline, when you are really cranking out the words, you go back for edits and you're like, wait, what happens next? I mean, you don't even remember.
Hmm.
So, which
Yeah.
sometimes is fun though, because then you get to rediscover it and go, okay, this is kind of good.
Yeah, it is kind of fun because it's like I equate it to like unpacking your winter clothes. When the
Yes.
seasons
Yes.
change, it's kind of like that. It's like, oh, I forgot I had this. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. That's a great analogy. um, Before we run out of time, when people get really excited reading your books, what is the best way for them to connect with you? Because all the readers out there, I always tell them, please connect with an author who you love their book, because we could be having a down day and your note could make us finish the next chapter. so,
Absolutely.
so do you like them to reach through your website, social media? How can they get in touch?
Well, I'm most active with social media on Instagram. I'm very active there, and I'm always happy to see a DM. Sometimes they end up in my requests, so I might not see them right away, but I always try to check my requests and see if I missed anything. So I love to talk to readers there. From my website, there's a contact form and you can fill it out. I get messages from readers there too, and I always respond. And my newsletter is my biggest way of communicating with my readers. I put a lot of time and effort into my newsletter, and you can also sign up for that at my website, paulettekennedy.com.
I love it. I love it. I have a very funny newsletter story that I'll share with you because you said you put a lot of work into your newsletters. But I one time put out a newsletter at Thanksgiving time and I didn't remember that I had included a contest in the newsletter
Ah.
and I had scheduled it like, a week before. And so then one day I am walking around and I keep getting these emails from random people that say gravy, cornbread. And I'm like, what is even happening? And then finally, one of them came and it had the newsletter attached. And I had asked them for their favorite part of Thanksgiving, and five
Right.
winners were going to get a book. I was like, oh my gosh. So, do
Well,
you do
yeah.
contests in your newsletter?
I do. I do giveaways every month. And there are sometimes I have a running to-do list on my phone, which helps me a ton with like all of those like little micromanaging like
Right.
tasks. But sometimes I need to set an alarm or alert, choose your giveaway winner and contact them,
Yes.
because I am perimenopausal. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's
So the
like
brain fog is real.
the brain fog is real. There is a connection. When you start losing that estrogen, it happens, and we need to talk about it. But yeah, so it's all of that stuff, that we do as authors. We do so much that like nobody ever sees, really.
Right, exactly. But you do contests, so people should sign up for your
Yes.
newsletter and they can win things, and that's always fun
Yes,
too.
it's really fun. Yeah, I really try to appreciate and support the people who support me, and make sure that they feel seen and acknowledged and all of the things, because I wouldn't be here without them.
Exactly, exactly. I love it. Well, it has been so much fun chatting with you, and I hope that everyone listening go out and grab The Artist of Blackberry Grange. It sounds fantastic, and Paulette has a backlist of books. So if you get excited, there are other books you can read before the next one comes out in 2026. And thanks so much for being here. It was so great chatting with you.
Thanks so much for having me, Lisa. It was a joy. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.